Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Learning Sound and Synthesis Spotlight interview. I'm here with the wonderful Chris Leventis, who I've been working with for many years in different capacities, different classes. We are here today to talk about Chris's amazing interdisciplinary creative practice. I'm going to let him explain it because he'll do a much better job, but combining modular synths, photography, and storytelling in many different forms. And we're not just going to talk about his practice and what it looks like, but also about what he's done to kind of help him build this practice and the kind of various twists and turns along the way, I guess we could say. So Chris, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks, Sarah. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And welcome to everyone who's watching live. Thank you for tuning in. Can you start us off, Chris, just with a little intro to who you are and what you do?
Yeah.
I know that's actually a big question for you, but
Sure, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Obviously my name's Chris Leventis. I'm from the Tampa Bay area in Florida. And wow, where do I start? So long history with the arts. I was originally a commercial and fashion photographer for some years and did all the usual stuff and taught at a college for about 15 years. And so I was very commercial based. And long story short, at one point I just stopped. I got a bit burnt out on everything and in the commercial world, and I stopped being creative for about close to 7 years, and then somehow found my way back to fine art. And I'm a structured person. I like structure, you know that. And I went back to get my MFA at Maine Media College up in Rockport, Maine, and that kind of changed my life. I started making work for me first and others second. And it was a kind of therapy. It was all the things, and it just rediscovered myself and what passion drew, what always drove me as a commercial artist was frustrating because I could never show that with clients. They always wanted to work a certain way. So moving to fine art kind of freed me, or it did free me. So there's a lot of stuff in between. Of course, we don't have the time to delve into every little detail. But long story short, I was about a year into making new work, and I was doing all landscape work, and my work's kind of more of a surrealistic landscape. I've been investigating the swamps for the last 4 years in Florida. And at one point, I was working with my mentor, one of my mentors, Sig Harvey, amazing photographer and writer. And she asked an innocent question, what would one of your images sound like? And I think this is right around the time when I started with you and doing mentorship work. And it just kind of blew my mind. And she had no idea how that innocent question would transform my practice. So I started investigating audio. I have an audio background. I was a Foley artist and did recording as well. And yeah, I went, down the rabbit hole. I went from there, and I started investigating audio. I started in the box and using Reason and Ableton and Logic and all that. And it wasn't enough. I needed to really dig in. And I guess the way I work as an artist, I find the things that scares the shit out of me the most, and I do it.
Yeah, I've always loved that about you. Like you intentionally go to the places that scare you. I think that's just there's so much courage within that. And so, that's so much that we can all learn from that, right? You're like, ooh, I don't know anything about this. This scares me.
Yeah,
Heck yeah, let's do it.
If I ever find myself comfortable, I know there's something wrong. I have to keep pushing, and that's just the way I'm wired. It's the way I always will be, and it's stressful. It can be, there's a lot of dissonance there, which comes through in my work as well. And yeah, so basically, long story short, I somehow found my way to modular synthesizers. Started out with semi-modulars, and then found your site and did the LSS, and I quickly, as you can see, went crazy with modular, and I love it. I love the aspect that's unpredictable, like my work. Nothing's ever the same. I love that aspect of it. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for that introduction. It paints a pretty good picture. I mean, I know that like everyone, your story is, there's a lot more to it than we could possibly get into in just a few minutes, but that does paint a good picture. And there's a couple things that I love that I really think will resonate with other people who are watching, namely the fact that you took some time away from being creative. I know that's a big one. A lot of people, for whatever reason, time or health or life or jobs or whatever it is, we have to take time away. Or maybe we just have a delayed start. Like we don't even get started until decades in our retirement or whatever. And we can create a lot of stories about being too late, too far behind all of that. And it's just really refreshing to hear you as an example of someone who just said, I took 7 years or however many years off, and then I went back into it, and I went back into it for myself. I love that. I started making
Yeah.
music for myself. I'm really curious, what changed? This is a completely unscripted question here. You're not prepared for this, but what do you think changed in your process, in your way of finding and creating work when you started to make it purely for yourself? Is there like a big one or two things that shifted?
Yeah, it was emotive. I finally allowed myself to tap into my emotion. I
Mhm.
wasn't masking it anymore behind commercial work. Commercial work's very clinical. Here's the
Right.
job, here's the specs, here's the deliverables. You never see it again. It's not yours anymore.
Mhm.
And I quickly discovered fine art, it becomes your work, it becomes your baby, and it's stepping stones, right? These, breadcrumbs that you follow throughout the work. And as you do that, I realized at some point, all of my work was really self-portraits. Yeah, it was about the swamp. Later it became about frequency. I started seeing
Oh,
frequency in my
yeah.
work. It became about, energy and the collision of energy, but really, ultimately, it was all self-portraits. When I realized that, it was like
Interesting.
the world opened up a bit. I allowed myself to understand that. I allowed myself to feel that and be in that space. And then the music followed. And when I made that connection, it was just like, there's no wrong way to make music. You've said that to us many times, and it's not conventional music, of course, but it's all about, it comes from the heart. It comes from that energy and that
Yeah.
clash that I see in the swamp.
Oh, I love that so much. So, another thing that really struck me in your story that I know will resonate with a lot of people is your beautiful and widespread creative interests. You have so many different things and so many different things that you're passionate about and that you've invested time in. And that can be another really big struggle for people. Like, oh gosh, I love
Yeah,
dancing and I love music and I love whatever, baking. And these three things, they don't go together. And so I'm constantly having this tug of war with myself about how do I divide my time and be an artist in all of these three areas. What you've done, and I want to show a little bit of your work in a few minutes, but what you've done is you've just put them all together. And this is what I always say, is the more of you that you put into your work, all of the crazy corners and multifaceted parts that don't fit, the more that you do put them together, the stronger it'll all be, because it just really becomes you, uniquely and singularly you. Can you talk a little
yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's just a constant struggle. It's about feeling guilty. Like I said, I prior to us going live, we chatted a bit, and I said that this is the first time I've been in front of my modular, powered on in about 2 months. And
Sure.
it was self-imposed because, I was making new work. My photography obviously drives everything. And I allowed myself to leave it alone for a while because I was such a big push when I did my thesis work with my performance and all that. So I allowed myself. It was hard. I would come into my studio to do other work because I also have a dark room over here, and there's an audio section over here. So it's a really interesting space. But so my modulars would stare at me and make me feel guilty because I haven't touched them in a while. But I kept reminding myself that's important. You've always told us too. So
Yeah.
what happens in here in that space is also important. It's coming out. So it's hard. It's hard to balance making new photography work, writing, making books, which I love to do, marketing my work as a full-time artist, which is a full-time job in itself, as you well know. So it's a matter of just finding the space that calls you and then doing a little work here and then finding the connections and just keeping that cyclical,
Yeah.
that cycle going. Yeah.
But how about, I totally agree and can relate to all of that.
Yeah.
And what I'm really curious to know about is, how did your photography, like, what does your practice look like now in terms of integrating these parts, all of these disparate parts together? Um,
Yeah.
can you share a little bit about that? Because you combine your modular synth music with your photography uh, in a very beautiful way, and you're telling stories and you're building narrative in both directions.
Hmm.
So you did say your photography comes first and kind of leads the way, but
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about how you're integrating your modular music into
Yeah,
that?
so my process is this, and it's always evolving. But I'll go out and I'll find a space, and obviously I'm still investigating swamps, and I'll go out and shoot, and I'll see what happens. And the way I shoot, the way I photograph is I don't look at my imagery for 2 or 3 weeks after I shoot. It's very instinctual. I do what I do. It's a very interesting process, long exposures. While I'm out there, I listen. I'll bring I've been working a lot with, field recordings for a while, and I'll bring a a little small setup that has a lot of granular modules in there. I use the Insta Scion. I'll connect, sensors into the swamp roots, and I'll put mics out, and I let things just kind of come into into my rig and record. And I'll go back and listen to it as I look at my imagery, and then if something grabs me, I'll go back and I'll do just recording, and I'll do a composition out in the swamp. Then I'll come back and I'll look at more imagery, and then my goal is to have every image have its own song, its own voice. That's kind of what I'm working at. So I don't know if that makes sense, but again, it's cyclical. I'll shoot, I'll see, I'll hear, I'll listen, I'll feel the space, then I'll record it, and then I'll come back and compose something, and then look at the imagery and see, okay, there's a connection, or if not, I'll try it again.
Yeah, no, it does. It makes perfect sense, and thank you for breaking it down like that. I think it's just so inspiring to hear. You do have a structure and you do have a workflow, but it's also it sounds very emergent, very spontaneous, where you go with one intention, and while you're doing that, you're also kind of always open for other directions or other threads that might emerge. And I think that that's just a really beautiful way to work. And so as a result, I don't want to say both sides, because it's not like it's music versus visual, but all sides, all parts kind of progress in their own way, yes, moving forward. Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm curious to hear, actually, this might be a good time to just listen to a little bit of your music, so that people can actually get a sense of what we're talking about. Because you said the word swamp a few times, and I really don't know. I want people to know that we're really talking about swamps. This is music made in swamps, partly by swamps, and it's just beautiful. So let me pull up, give me 1 second here. Bear with me. I'm going to pull up the video. Oh boy, let's see if I can do it real time. Here we go. I got it. I'm going to share audio. Hopefully this will work as planned. And we'll just watch a little clip of this, and then I'll pass the link on to people so that you can check out the whole thing, because it's a beautiful 7.5 minute long piece. This is so cool. I'm going to let people here. Let me grab the link to this, and I'm just going to let people check out the rest of that after this interview is over. Don't change the channel now, because we've got more to talk about. But I'm going to go and post that. That is such a cool performance and video. The whole thing. It's just stunning, Chris. It's so great. Okay, folks, I'm posting this in the chat, in the comments. So you can check that out after if you're curious. So what I'd love to know, I'd love to kind of maybe go back in time a little bit and just talk a little bit about your journey learning modular, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because the way that you explained it was like, you know, I'm a photographer. I went back into fine art. And then I just started investigating sound and making all this incredible music on modular synths. There's a big gap that I'd love to try to bridge for everyone who's watching.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, among other things, you joined my class learning sound and synthesis. But can you talk a little bit about maybe what that process was like for you, or what you found most helpful in terms of developing your modular synth skills?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had no modular synth experience. I mean, I was a recording engineer for a bit, and I did Foley, and I did stuff in the box, basically. I had some field recording with film as well. But I knew what waveforms were. I knew kind of the basics. I knew how audio worked. I could record. I could do all that stuff. I could mic a drum set. All that cool stuff in the studio. But never touched a modular rig. I saw Eurorack systems, and I'm like, this stuff's crazy. I would never do stuff like that. Just too involved. Wires everywhere. But when I started thinking about experimental sound, and I started, I found you, and I started the LSS program, and the way you break it down, just amazing for modules, and everything's, in the right order, and it's very approachable, and it really helped me, and then like I said, I started with semi-modular, stuff for make noise, and it started to become more approachable. It was a stair step, but there was something about it. I didn't like it. I just didn't like just doing it in the computer. So, plugging a wire in and turning a knob just had complete satisfaction, even though if I didn't really know what I was doing yet. So from there, it was just, I'm the kind of person, when I find something passionate, I dive head first. I don't look back. I invest myself, and it becomes just I don't sleep. It's always in my head. So I'm always investigating. And yeah, I just did the LSS program, and I started doing your mentorship programs as well. And that really helped me, not just above, it's cool to find out how things work and how you create a rhythm and how you use sequencers and how you use LFOs and all that cool stuff. But really what clicked for me with you was, why do we do it? And not just how. The how can be done, eventually, if you have put it about enough time. But if you don't figure out that why, and why are you doing the work you're doing, and why you're following these breadcrumbs that I like to talk about a bit, then it becomes, it's the kind of the glue that binds everything. I'm not sure if that makes sense to everybody, but why was important. Why am I doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think understanding your why behind your practice, or even just behind one piece or one project, can be really helpful for those moments where you're stuck and you have no idea what your next step is, and things aren't working the way you thought they were. And then you're like, okay, what now? If you can come back to, okay, why am I doing this in the first place? What was the intention behind this? What was the feeling I was trying to create, or whatever it might be? That can be like a little beacon to reorient you back onto the right path. So that's something that I do really emphasize a lot. And I'm glad that was helpful for you. And we all have different whys. There's no right reason. There's no right why am I doing this. And I want to say too, it changes, and it can change, and that's also okay, right? Yeah, amazing. So you, just because you mentioned LSS and I mentioned LSS, I'm going to go ahead and put this URL up on the screen. Learning sound and synthesis, my sound design and synthesis class. It's called, the website, is soundandsynthesis.com. And that's where you can get yourself signed up for the priority notification list. What that means is that you'll be notified as soon as enrollment opens. I'm only running the class one more time this year, and it's going to open up in late August. So exclusively for people on the priority list. So if you want to be notified and you want to make sure that you're able to join for the last cohort of the year, go to soundandsynthesis.com, get yourself signed up, send me a DM if you have any questions about what the class, includes or who it's for or anything like that. But the short form version of that I'll say is, you do not need prior experience. Chris didn't have any prior experience in modular, as he said. So you can come in, without any experience in music, without any experience in synths. You will be supported and guided step by step throughout the entire thing, from the very basics through to really awesome advanced patching techniques. You also don't need gear. That's another really big thing. You can have gear, but you don't need it, because I teach everything using an amazing free virtual synth called VCV Rack, which I highly recommend checking out. So you don't need a studio, you don't need gear, and you don't need experience. All you need is, you know, a willingness to try, a curiosity, and you'll be set. I want to get back over to you, Chris. That felt like a moment. So where are you going? You mentioned that you're working on some new projects. You've got some new things coming up. Do you want to talk a little bit about where you feel like your creative practice is headed and what's coming up for you?
Yeah. Well, there's some exciting news. I have a show, my first solo show opening up here at the Florida Museum of Photographic Arts in Ybor City, Tampa. That opens September 11th. So exciting. I'm busy getting ready for that. I'll be showing my black and white work that I've been doing for the last 4 years, as well as some new color infrared work, which is pretty exciting. So I'm going to be doing a sound installation along with that, some projection work. And I'll be doing my second ever live performance for Modular. I did my first one back in my thesis presentation over a year ago, and I'll be doing another new composition as part of one of the events there. So I'm going to start working towards that. So a lot of things going on. I have a book that's been out. I'm reprinting the book for doing a second printing, and I'll be available. So yeah, outside of that, I got some ideas to bring my process to maybe shooting some experimental portraits that might be paired with swamp work. I have some loose ideas I've been writing about. Taking the modular music, maybe new directions. I love the biofeedback. I've been testing stuff, by attaching probes to people and seeing, or myself now, and seeing how it all works. And I'm trying to find a connection. There's a connection between swamps and the human experience. I'm not really sure what that is yet, but hopefully I figured that out. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm sure you will, and I'm excited to stay tuned and hear about it once you do. I got to ask you maybe one more question here. Because I was just listening to you describe this upcoming project, it sounds amazing. You really do go all in. Like when you do something, you are like, I'm releasing a book, I'm doing an audio installation, I'm doing a performance, I've got an exhibit of my photography. What would you say? And I love that about you. I completely love that about you. But what would you say to someone who's like, okay, Chris, I'm beginning at this stuff, and I want to get where you're at some point in the future. I want to do all those things. That sounds amazing. But I don't know yet how a synth works, and I don't necessarily know how my creative practice looks. Like, what would you say to them in terms of their first few steps, like how to get started, how to just enter into this?
Well, my MO has always been, in whatever arena I've been in, is that you find people that you not idolize, but people that you admire and feel that you want to learn. And then you find them, you approach them, and you ask for help. I found you with Modular, with my photography and fine art. I mean, I had my structure of the MFA, but I would work with amazing mentors, world-class mentors that helped me. And don't be afraid to ask for help, and find the people that are at the top of their game and ask for help. And usually you'll get it. And then, of course, remember that, because then you have to give that back. It should be reciprocal. That's how the arts work. We get help, we give it back. And then the second thing for me is always just baby steps. I'm hard on myself. Sometimes I lay awake at night thinking, okay, I should be doing more. But sometimes doing more is not always a good thing. Do less, but do it every day. Have a schedule and do something small every day. I mean, I'm going to screw up the saying, but it's something about how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's kind of crude, but that's a saying I've heard over and over for some reason. But yeah, just one small step at a time, and it accumulates, and you'll be surprised where you started and where you are. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you. Those are both so practical. So I really appreciate that. Asking for help. It can feel really scary, but it's so important. And asking for help can look a lot of different ways. It can be like you send someone a DM and ask them a question. It can also be that you are, investing in yourself and deciding to enroll in a course and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this alone anymore. Right. You probably could figure it out, but let's condense the timeline. Let's get straight to the answers. And then the baby steps thing is just so powerful too. Remembering that, it's not about waking up one day on a random Tuesday and having everything click all at once. It's about little tiny contributions into your practice every single day, even if it's just one step a day. You're right that at the end of the year, if you show up every day and make a little bit of music or do a little bit of modular synth study, by the end of the year, your practice will be unrecognizable, truly. And I think that's just such a good reminder. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
when I turned on my computer, I have a second monitor, and this quote I always have up came up, and maybe I'll share it with everybody because it's a powerful one for me.
Sure.
I'm not always a quote person, but there are a few that really resonate, and this one has always resonated with me. And this is one by John Cage. You know, he worked with Philip Guston, who was a painter, and I guess it was him advising Guston when he had a kind of a roadblock in his creative practice. And it goes like this. When you start working, everyone is in your studio. The past, your friends, enemies, the art world, and above all, your own ideas. All are there, but as you continue painting, they start leaving one by one, and you are left completely alone. And if you're lucky, even you leave. So for me, that's powerful because it's about being in our head and not allowing true expression out. And it's true, we all need friends, we need loved ones, we need important people in our life. I'm very lucky to have that. But ultimately, when you're making work, you're on your own, and you have to be comfortable with that. And you have to also let yourself go away so you can truly create. So for me, that's a powerful quote. Hopefully that resonates with other people.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like there's a bit of an aspect of, being comfortable with yourself to guide yourself in a way, being able to ask yourself even for advice and to trust what comes up in those moments. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone who has tuned in live. It's always great to see you here. If you're watching the replay and you have questions, you know what to do. Just drop a comment, ask a question. We'd be happy to answer. And I'm going to put this up on the screen one more time here, just in case you didn't catch it the first time. soundandsynthesis.com. Go ahead and click on that link or get yourself to that link to join the priority notification list for my upcoming class. We're opening enrollment for one more time this year at the end of August. It's going to be an amazing cohort. We're working behind the scenes to put a lot of really exciting things into place for the upcoming cohort. So it's going to be a blast. I think that's it. Thank you, Chris, so much. Right. It's so good to see you and catch up.
You too.
And I'll see everyone out there. See you soon. Bye for now.